Personally, I would advocate to get married legally as well. Get married legally as well.
2005 was the last time that I was in Algeria as an unmarried man. I was 16 years old. A couple months later, I got married. And I remember very clearly the day that I was meant to come back to the UK, we were driven to the airport. And I can't remember exactly what the reason was, but either we missed our flight and we were late, or they had double booked our seat. Either way, I got to spend the extra day in Algeria. I was happy, bruv, as far as I was concerned. I didn't care. I was like, yes, I get to stay here for another day, bruv. My uncle drives us back, and I'm sat with my cousin Muhammad in the car. Muhammad sat to the right of me. And we get to where we lived at that time. For those of you who might know Samizon, which literally translates to 5 houses. It's a block of 5 high-rise flats that were built side by side, but it's proper slums, bruv. Proper slums, yeah? During the time of the French occupation, they built it. And my uncle gets out of the car. Now, picture the scenery. You've got the sea just towards the end of the road. You've got these buildings, these 5 massive high-rise buildings, and then the kids all playing in the zanqa all outside, like little babies, 2-year-olds with nappies falling off and everything, bro. It's mad. Proper mad. And then my uncle, he cups his hand around his mouth like this, and he shouts up. We lived on the 5th or the 6th floor. I can't remember which one at the time. And he shouts up, Muhammad. I'm like, I know that there's only my auntie in the house at that moment in time. I know this. Number 1. Number 2, Muhammad is sat right next to me, bruv. Again, Muhammad. I look at my cousin Muhammad, who's actually sat next to me. I say to him, bruv, please explain to me what's going on here, because man's hella confused right now. Why is he saying Muhammad? And he said to me, it's aib to call a woman's name in public. You can't say her name in public. Was he going to actually shout her name? No. So he shouted, Muhammad. And lo and behold, my auntie actually came to the balcony and responded to him. As I address and respond to Rami in this video, I will refer to his wife as his family. So each time I address his points, I will not say Rami or I will not say Rami's wife. Because in my culture, where I'm from, and indeed in many Arab cultures, it's not only rude to address a man's wife by her name. Bruv, you would never do that.
Oh, how's Sarah? How's Sophia?
Are you stupid, bruv? Do you know her? No, why are you addressing her by her first name then? Furthermore, don't even ask me about her. So not only can you not address a man's wife by her first name, you can't even say, how's your wife? This is aib, this is rude, this is like, what do you mean, how's my wife, bruv? What's she got to do with you? Why are you asking about my wife? So we say, كيف العائلة? How's your family? It's more broad, it's less direct, but the receiver of this question understands what's being said. So if I do address Rami's wife, I will not say Rami's wife, I will say Rami's family. I'm just giving you this story so that you understand why I will repeatedly say Rami's family, in case you're wondering, what's he talking about, Rami's family? Now, Rami has absolutely dropped the ball on this, and obviously, and to the everyday viewer, this would be obvious. This is not an issue of contention. This is clearly he's dropped the ball and he's made a number of mistakes, which I'm going to address. However, when I address them, I will address them in as polite and courteous manner as possible. I will not go on my usual rampage because of a number of reasons. Number 1, he's our Muslim brother. Number 2, I'm actually quite close with Angel and Fayad. We talk a lot privately, and obviously the 3 of them run the podcast together, so I don't want to come in between any of that. And there's a number of points that we need to address. Number 1, when Rami was asked by Sneeko, what is the reason that you would get a legal marriage? And indeed, to my understanding, Rami has a legal marriage. And Rami mentions,
Personally, I would advocate to get married legally as well. And I have my own reasons for that. Some people might differ.
What are your reasons? Because that's what I completely disagree on. I don't see any advantage to that. I think I'm completely against that.
One of that, bro.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So firstly, when you speak to some Muslim women, some of them find themselves in a situation where they got married to someone just religiously, so it's not on the books in terms of what the government sees. And then the man will get them pregnant with multiple kids. She'll give birth to their kids, and the guy will up and just leave. Or he'll marry someone else Islamically and just completely neglect his first wife. And there's no Islamic authority that's going to stop him from doing that. There's no, a governmental authority, even if it's not Muslim, that's going to stop him from doing that. And she has no kind of way out of it.
Billahi, I have a question for you. I have a question for you, the audience. How many men do you know of, Muslim or otherwise, who have just upped and left their families, Just like that. Never wanting to see his kids again or provide for them or whatever the case. How many do you know? And then the second question I would ask you is, how many women do you know who initiate the divorce themselves? Just let that question marinate in your mind. Now, the statistics are very clear on this. 70 to 80% of all divorces in the West are initiated by women. That statistic goes up to 90% if we are dealing with a college-educated woman. That is a university-educated woman. So this red herring example of, just in case a man ups and leaves, I'm sure he exists. I'm sure that avatar, that character of a Muslim man upping and leaving his family, I'm sure he has existed in the past. But he is a damn minority. He is an absolute minority that is not worth the bother to think about when we are making blanket statements as to the general advice, what the everyday person should do with their life, in this instance, marriage. We cannot give a general, broad advice to everyone just off the basis of a minority of individuals who may or may not perpetrate this action. It's not to undermine or minimize, but that individual is small. To make a ruling based upon this small individual, who most of us have probably never even met or heard of, is foolish, to say the least. But, as you know, I am the Dr. Onion Peeler. I wish I could think of a more romantic name than that, but unfortunately that's what we're going to have to run with today. And I'm going to explain to you how this runs deeper than that. Average Abdullah has a conversation with sensuous Safiya. Sensuous Safiya says to him,
I like you. I trust you. I want to marry you. You're the one for me.
Average Abdullah says,
Great, fantastic. When are we doing the nikah?
sensuous Safiya then responds, oh,
No, Habibi. I trust you and everything, but we need to involve the government in our marriage.
and average Abdullah says to her,
What do you mean we need to involve the government in our marriage? I don't even know what that means. What does that mean?
and she says,
I want a civil marriage. I want our marriage to be registered by law.
and average Abdullah says to her,
But, sensuous Sophia, don't you trust me?
and she says,
I trust you. I absolutely trust you. I want to marry you. I love you, maybe. But, it will make me feel more secure.
Billahi, I have a question for you, the viewer watching right now. If sensuous Safiya had an inkling of doubt in her mind that average Abdullah would leave her, would abandon her, would get up and leave the home one day and leave her stranded with multiple children, do you really think she would marry him if she had that inkling of doubt in her mind? Do you? Of course she wouldn't. Obviously not. Which means then, if that is the case, why are we implementing putting average Abdullah's neck on the chopping block for something that sensuous Safiya doesn't believe will happen in the first place? More to the point, rarely happens in the first place. What actually happens, as the norm, unfortunately, is women initiating divorce themselves and men with their necks on the chopping block losing half their assets and so on and so forth. So obviously sensuous Safiya doesn't believe average Abdullah's actually going to do this. So why then would she still want a civil marriage? Because let's face it, no man wants to do a civil marriage and put his neck on the chopping block. If you said to me, oh, it's to protect women just in case, then I would ask our brother Rami, do you have a doubt in your mind that you would leave your family? And remember the definitions of what I'm talking about, family, you understand. Do you? I'm sure you would say to me, no, of course not, Mahdi. Of course I'm not going to up and leave my family in the example that I gave of this archetype of Muslim man who apparently gets up and leaves, which I'm sure he exists, but he's a minority. Rami is an upstanding individual, a good Muslim man. We can see this, alhamdulillah. A student of knowledge, somebody who's practicing the religion and striving. He's clearly a good man. With this being the case, Akhi Rami, do you have a doubt in your mind that you would up and leave your wife? Your family, excuse me, I apologize. No, of course not. Furthermore, let's be completely honest with ourselves. How many men do you watching me right now, personally know, who has more than one wife. Bruv, how many men do you know who has even one wife? We have a crisis going on right now, for crying out loud. So we cannot take this statement seriously that men who get married again have a proclivity or a tendency to abandoning the first wife. This is utter nonsense. The majority of men don't even have one. No, the majority of men definitely don't have multiple wives, and a great minority, around 30% or so, between the ages of 18 and 30, don't even have one. This is not a real thing. Has it happened? I'm sure it has. Is it something to worry about? No. Now, to move the situation away from our brother Rami now, if a man finds himself in a situation where he absolutely does, he's a good man, he's an average guy, average Abdullah. Most men are most men. Most men do average things. Most men don't up and leave their families. He knows he's not going to do this. He's just a regular dude. But he still agrees to put his neck on the chopping block and involve the government in his marriage. Involve Uncle Ben in his marriage. Is it Uncle Ben? I can't remember, bruv. You understand what I'm saying? Uncle Tom, my bad. Uncle Ben's the English version, yallah. So in that case, if a man knows that this is not going to be him and still agrees to involve the government in his marriage, it is because the other party, the wife, sensuous Sophia, has insisted upon this term to the point where she has said, if you do not agree to this, this is a deal breaker for me, and I will call off the marriage. This now puts you in a position whereby you are agreeing to terms from a position of weakness, not a position of strength. Now, I'm not directing this comment towards Rami himself. I am simply saying, in this example of average Abdullah and sensuous Sophia, if average Abdullah knows that he's not that guy, and sensuous Sophia insists upon this, he is actually agreeing to something that is fundamentally against his will. No man in his right mind wants half of his assets to be taken away from him. None. Zero. Unjustly so. 50%. Where is this in the Sharia? Where is this in the religion? It doesn't exist. And now we bring this back around full circle. We have already established then, if a woman genuinely believed that the man she was considering for marriage had a potential or a possibility of upping and leaving her, she wouldn't marry him. Which means what? If she insists upon this condition, and the insisting will be coming from her, not from the guy. Unless the guy is so blue-pilled, wanting to just like completely, yes, my lady, whatever. I want you to have... Very few men are like this, or who knows actually. A lot of men are like this these days. Regardless, no man wants to commit suicide, financial suicide. Which means now that she is insisting upon this. For what reason? There are two reasons. Number one, this Muslim woman, sensuous Sophia, she wants to secure her imperative. What is her imperative, you may ask me? To ensure that her husband doesn't marry again, take a second wife. And if he does, there will be a punitive measure in place if she decides she wants to leave. What will the punitive measure be? The punishment, the consequence? The consequence will be he will lose half of his wealth. So this is constantly in the back of the mind of average Abdullah as he's navigating the years of marriage with sensuous Sophia. He knows if he marries again and sensuous Sophia is not on board, he runs the risk, the very high risk, of losing half of everything he owns. Now, if you couple that with the fact that in the case of our brother Rami, he's clearly a brother who's going places. Well then, in this instance here, Rami, 10 to 20 years from now, may Allah grant him and his family a long and prosperous marriage. But he would have a lot more to lose than the average brother, because brother Rami is clearly above average. He's not your average Abdullah archetype. He is above average in intellect, in reasoning, in the way he conducts himself and speaks. And I'm not trying to throw dust in his eyes, but this is clear for all to see. He's an intelligent brother and he's going places. So if a brother agrees to this, number one, sensuous Sophia is ensuring her imperative to minimize and reduce the likelihood of you taking another wife. Number two, if you do marry again, she has her insurance policy in place. And the insurance policy is half of your assets as distributed by our Uncle Ben. I have now named him Uncle Ben. He is no longer Uncle Tom. I'm sorry to my American audience. I don't care. I make these names up as I go along. Uncle Ben, here's the new name. Uncle Ben, he will take it, half of your assets and give it to the wife whether you like it or not. And I will conclude with this. If a man is a man of means, capable, able to spend on a second, third, fourth wife and doesn't, he is selfish. If a man has means, financial means, and he is just, and he is practicing, and he is of upright character, and he chooses to not marry again, he is selfish. Why? Because there are so few of these type of men in the world today, and there are so many women who are single and could do with a husband like that, albeit on a part-time basis. A. B. A woman who finds herself married to a man of means, married to a man who fears Allah, married to a man who is of upright character, and she gets in the way of him marrying again. She is a woman of the utmost selfishness. She is concerned only with herself and her emotions. That's not to say a woman can't feel some type of way about her husband getting married again. But if he fulfills this criteria and he's able to do it, and she gets in the way to the point where she starts threatening with the divorce card, which is an extremely real, heavy ace card in the pocket of a woman who ties that noose around your head and makes you agree to involve in Uncle Ben, Uncle Tom, yallah, in your marriage, then you're in trouble. You are finished! So I know I made this a bit jokey and all the rest, but the truth of the matter is it's not jokey. And there are some deep psychological layers that need to be peeled back, and that's what I do, that's what I thrive on, that's what I specialize in. So, may Allah reward our brothers, particularly Rami, as this video is addressed to him specifically, but you have dropped the ball on this one, Akhi. And I hope you can redress this. I'm open to have this discussion with you in person if you'd like, perhaps online, whatever the case may be. But to those who have watched that and are thinking, oh, well, maybe it's not so bad. No, it is so bad. Check out this video. You might enjoy it. It's the marriage crisis, a reaction to our brother Muhammad Hijab and Daniel Haqiqati. I've done it a couple of months back.